We question our daily position, seeking answers and definitions. Get the queries off your chest with Ahkam SOS.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Ahkam SOS, the show that discusses Islamic duties and practices. Before we begin, we'd like to send our condolences to the Imam of our time and also the Muslim Ummah on the tragic martyrdom of Sayyidah Fatima Zahra Salamu alayha. I'm your host, Mohsin Shah, and joining me is Sheikh Ali Ma'ar. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Sheikhna, before we begin, a little on Fatima Zahra Salamu alayha. Who is, a greater personality? Bibi Maryam, the mother of Hazrat Isa alayhi salam, or Fatima Zahra Salamu alayha, the daughter of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين. In a narration by Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, when he was asked about Fatima alayhi salam, that is she the leader of the women of the world of her time, in the time of her being in this world? They said, Ya Rasulullah, هي سيدة نساء عالمها, is Fatima is the leader, is the chief of the women of her time, means the time of the Islam, the birth of Islam in Medina. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam responded that ذاك مريم ابنة عمران. No, that individual is Maryam, daughter of Imran,
Okay.
The mother of Jesus, Isa alayhi salam,
Yes.
who was the leader or the chief of the women of the world of her time. Then the Holy Prophet says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, وَأَمَّا ابْنَتِي فاطمة, but indeed my daughter Fatima, فهي سيدة نساء العالمين, she is the leader of the women of the world, من الأولين والآخرين, from the beginning of the creation to the end of the creation. She overrided Maryam in this position and status that became even greater than Maryam alayhi salam. Then the Prophet says, وَأَنَّهَا لَتَقُومُ فِي مِحْرَابِهَا, Fatima stands in her mihrab for salah. فَيُسَلِّمْ عَلَيْهَا 70,000 مَلَك, 70,000 angels would greet and salute Fatima alayhi salam. من الملائكة المقربين, from those who are close to Allah, the high status of malaika, the muqarrabun, those who have close, and a great status before Allah Azza wa Jal, would greet Fatima when she stands for salah. And of course, وَيُنَادُونَهَا بِمَا نَادَتْ بِهِ الْمَلَائِكَةُ مَرْيَمَ, and they would call her, they would speak to her as the malaika in the time of Maryam, in the time of Bani Israel, when they called Maryam alayhi salam, the malaika in her time, they would also use the same speech with Fatima alayhi salam. فَيَقُولُونَ يَا فَاطِمَةِ, they call Fatima alayhi salam, إِنَّ اللَّهَ اصْطَفَاكِ وَطَهَّرَكِ وَاصْطَفَاكِ عَلَى نِسَاءِ الْعَالَمِينَ. Although this ayah was revealed about Maryam alayhi salam, yes, but also it is for Fatima alayhi salam.
MashaAllah.
In this narration.
MashaAllah.
So she has this great status of overriding this position and status over Maryam salamullah alayha.
Subhanallah. Just a quick reminder to all our viewers that this is a live show and we do take in your questions. So if you have a question you'd like to send it in via the WhatsApp, the email address ahkamsos@imamhussein.tv, or alternatively give us a call in the studio 0203 515 0199, and inshallah me and the Sheikh will be able to discuss and answer your question. Sheikhna, in the UK, driving with your phone, that's I believe it's 3 points in the £200 fine. Islamically speaking though, when it comes to the Sharia, driving with your mobile phone maybe it may cause a collision or not. Is this halal or haram? His Eminence, the Grand Ayatollah Sheikh Wahid Khorasani, he has a fatwa on this. What does he say?
His Eminence mentions that the intellect or the aql or the reason can define the necessity of abstaining from this such act, which could cause severe harm to others. So initially the aql, you have to go back to your aql and your intellect to judge and to take the right action and decision. And you don't need to go back to the scholars and ulama and ask, can I, send text message while I'm driving? So the aql rules, because ما حكم به العقل حكم به الشرع. Whatever the intellect rules, the shara will rule as well. The aql, the intellect, and the shara, they work line by line, side by side with this regard. They don't separate in this field. So the one should go back to the aql initially and think and reflect about the situation, that you might cause a severe harm to the passers-by, for example. Those who
very hazardous.
Exactly. So you have to avoid it.
I see. Sheikhna, when it comes to construction and building houses and so forth, we have so many developments here in the UK and so forth. Some of these are too expensive, as in we can't buy them outright straight away. Are we allowed to give them as installment plans, let's say for a period of 5 years, that you can pay monthly or so forth? Is this Islamically acceptable?
Yes, it is allowed. There's no issue with it. You either buy the property,
outright,
let's say cash or one-off payment, or by installments, as long as there is no injustice involved in terms of this dealing. So that should be fine. You can purchase such a property.
Sheikh, I've got an interesting question here. If there is an individual who, doesn't, support his family in terms of his wife and his children in regards to their needs and requirements, but he himself actually has, mashallah, rizq, wealth, he can afford to support his family and so forth, but he doesn't do so. This family, this wife and these children, are they entitled to charity or not?
You see, if they were in need of this help, then of course there's no harm to give them and support them. So it depends really. Okay.
So Sheikh, now a question coming in from one of our viewers, inshallah, be up here. Is it permissible to invest a percentage of the donor's fund in authorized fields, and how should the percentage be determined?
Well, this depends on the view of the board of the trustees, those who are responsible for this place, and of course what is the objective of the donors, what is their aim when they've donated this amount to this place. So it depends really.
Okay. Sheikhna, with charities, a lot of charities ask for your khums money. They're being given ijazah and so forth to take khums money. However, where they spend the khums money, is that up to them, or do they have to get permission from the Ahkam Shari'i or from the Maraja where to spend the khums money? Let's say they know that there's a poor family here, or there's a school here, or a hawza, or there's some sadat here and so forth, that they can spend the khums money on. Do they have the authority to do that, or must they refer back to the Marja?
The advice is always, when it comes to huquq al-shar' and khumus and so forth and the Jews, the one should ask permission, just in case that he won't be, doing a mistake in terms of not paying the right amounts, or underpaying or overpaying and so forth. So take the ijazah and the permission from the Ahkam Shari' with this regard. And of course, when they give the ijazah, they would give, for example, half of the khumus or 1/3 of the khumus to pay to those who are in need of it. So for example, you have khums al-sada, haqq al-sada, the portion of the sayyids, the poor sayyids, of course. So you take the ijazah that I have a couple of families who are poor and they are sayyids. So you take this portion of the sayyids and you pay it to them with the ijazah of the marja'. Or sometimes the marja', he announces, he declares that you are allowed to spend and give your portion of khums al-sada, for example, for this cause, or Sahm al-Imam, and so forth. So always we try to consult and speak to the office of the Maraja and to the Marja himself to see what can be done with this regard.
Shaykhna, I believe the next question is from one of our viewers. If one made nadhr but later forgot completely what the nadhr was, what should he do?
Simply nothing, to be honest, unless the one should basically do istighfar,
Okay,
that he missed such a nadhr.
I see.
So yes, it's just istighfar and that's it.
I see. Shaykhna, if the house was built for the purpose of sustenance and no one lives there until the end of the khums year, at what price the khums should be taken out, in accordance to His Eminence the Grand Ayatollah Sheikh Bashir al-Najafi?
Well, as mentioned in the question, if the buyer did not live in that house, so the house was left empty, so the khumus will be on the purchase value of the house.
Oh, I see.
So if he bought it, let's say £200,000, then he pays khumus of the £200,000.
Shaykh, I believe we have a phone call from one of our viewers, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. Hello, assalamu alaikum. Okay, having some technical difficulties there. If you could call back, inshallah, we'll be able to answer your question, hopefully. Shaykhna, a refugee family in Denmark receives monthly entitlements. The father receives separately from the family, and the family also receives some form of welfare from the state. It is the father's duty to actually provide for the family. So does he provide from his money that he's receiving from the state, which is his own individual what he's receiving? Or can he say that, okay, I'm getting my bit, the family's getting their welfare or their, whatever government allowance, they can use that?
Basically, the husband is wajib and obliged to spend on his wife because she's wajib al-nafaqah. So in this situation, he must spend on her even if she's well off. She's got her own income, for example. You still have to spend on the wife. So for the children, for example, yes, you can use their money paid to the children to spend on their clothing, on their food and drink, and so forth. School, let's say, expenses, and so forth.
Shaykhna, as you are well aware, in the Hawza, we have people from international, different countries, and some of them find it difficult to speak the language of Arabic. Sometimes they can't pronounce the words properly. Sometimes they don't understand what they're saying fully. As you know, the Fusha language can be very, very difficult. When it comes to the nikah that is recited, the aqd between two parties, is it sufficient for someone to recite it in Arabic but doesn't necessarily understand what he or she is saying? Is the nikah still valid?
Yes, it is still sufficient, provided that the person has some understanding of the rough of the aqd, or of the basically the intention of this or the reason for this contract. So roughly, if you can explain to the other side that this is aqd in which will make us halal to be in a relationship, for example. And I remember once a youth asked me that he was in one of the European countries, and a non-Muslim lady approached him, possibly a Christian from the Ahlul Kitab, and she proposed to be in a ala kulli hal relationship. Of course, she said to him that I'm ready even to recite for me the what you have. So
Okay.
she knew previously that the Muslims have something,
I see.
a contract or aqd to recite.
Okay.
They understand, some of them understand the situation, that there is actually that Muslims believe in
There's like a
to have
ritual.
exactly a ritual or a contract to be recited before entering into any relationship.
Ahsan. Shaykhna, I do believe we have a caller on the line. Inshallah, we'll be able to get through this time. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaykum
Brother,
assalam.
your question please to the Sheikh. I hope you're well. Your question please.
Yes, thank you. My question to the Sheikh is, I am a social influencer and I use platforms such as YouTube, Twitch or TikTok or any variety of platforms. And I make money from those platforms, but I've seen that some of the adverts for my videos or some of the content that I get paid from may have inappropriate stuff, or such as it might have sexual content, or it might have advertising alcohol or gambling.
Okay.
What do I do if I receive that money?
I see.
Can I receive that money? Can I even
Good
spend that
question.
money?
Good question. Thank you very much for your question, brother. Thank you. Sheikhna, as you know, on social media, a lot of content creators out there, there's adverts that are played before, in the middle and after during their videos, their content. They don't have control over these adverts. Sometimes they even receive money because of the amount of viewership they're getting. Now, the brother's asking, sometimes there's an advert maybe on regards to alcohol or gambling or something that's inappropriate and so forth. The money he receives, what does he do with it? Is that halal? Is that does he have to give it to charity or so forth?
You see, basically, if somebody can speak or write to the YouTube management, for example, or the social media management, to be able to change the settings of the advertisements, that we don't want to receive any adverts which have such a contents, 18 plus contents, for example. That's great, because we don't want to somehow serve people. Let's say I'm a YouTuber, for example, in a specific field, sports, I don't know, discussions
Gaming,
and so forth.
Islamic talk,
But I want to serve the community. But I shouldn't be participating, even indirectly, in promoting indecency.
Yes.
That's very important.
I see.
So the brother needs to discuss with the
company,
to see if they can change the settings, and maybe they can bring. I've seen lots of adverts which are normal,
Yeah.
There's no issue with it.
Clothing
So
lines.
best thing is to avoid
Services.
promoting such adverts, and of course the one should always be in the side of the goodness and the good deeds.
Ahsant. Well said, Sheikhna. I do believe we have another question coming in from one of our viewers. Is it permissible for a man to marry two women who are sisters, even if they were sisters through breastfeeding? So they have the same, as we say, the wet nurse. Sometimes, as you know from Islamic law, if two babies who have separate mothers, separate fathers, but if they are wet nurse, if they're breastfed by the same woman, they are mahram to one another. They cannot get married and so forth. So is it permissible for a man to marry two women who are sisters, even if they were sisters through wet nursing?
Well, it is not permissible. In Islam, we have this ruling that you cannot marry two sisters at the same time. The Holy Quran states in Surah number 4, ayah 23, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, حُرِّمَتْ عَلَيْكُمْ. It is forbidden for you, until the ayah says, وَأَن تَجْمَعُوا بَيْنَ الْأُخْتَيْنِ, and two sisters in wedlock at the same time. You cannot have both at the same time. So yes, you get married to one and you have to leave the other one. If the aqd was in the same time, both contract nikah are void and batil.
Interesting.
But if you made the first, let's say, the contract, the marriage contract, initially with the sister A,
yes,
and then after a few days with sister B, only the sister A will remain valid, the aqd nikah, and the sister B will be void and batil.
From beginning.
Exactly.
I see.
But if they do done the same time, they both batil.
Both are batil. Excellent. Sheikhna, if an individual has only one piece of clothing, let's just say very, very extreme circumstance, let's say it's time for salah, I don't have any clothing whatsoever apart from one shirt and it's najis, there's najasa on it. Now, yes, you could say that there's a ruling that you can pray without your shirt on. If the the requirements of covering are there, the shirt is not one of those requirements, so you can pray without the shirt. But if it's really, really cold, extreme circumstances, I need to put this shirt on, but there's najasa on it, is my salah batil or is it sahih?
In such a severe and difficult situation, it is mandatory for the one to pray with this najis shirt or jacket and so forth, and the salah will be valid, inshallah.
Inshallah. Sheikh, we have another phone call today. Hold on. Assalamu alaikum.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله. السلام سيد.
Assalamu alaikum. How are you doing? You okay?
Alhamdulillah, I'm all well.
MashaAllah. Your question, please, to the Sheikh.
If I change my marja before the end of my khums year, who should I pay my khums to?
Ah, good question. Good question. Thank you very much. Sheikh, now if I
Thank you very much, Sayyid.
if I change my marja before my khums year ends, then where do I pay my khums to? Which marja do I pay my khums to?
Well, the best thing is to go back to the previous marja you were following and to ask them the situation. That's the best thing, is to go back to your previous marja.
Okay.
And ask for the ijazah.
Ask for the ijazah. Okay. So go back to your previous marja office.
Speak to them, yeah.
Speak with them.
Speak with them. That's the best thing.
Okay.
Inshallah.
Excellent. Sheikh, another question from one of our viewers, inshallah. Can the men and women wear clothing or garments made with threads of gold woven into it or with gold buttons on it and pray? So certain garments have where they're gold plated or they're actually made from gold. Are they allowed to pray with them, men and women?
Well, for the men, it is not permissible. Men are not allowed to wear any type of gold and jewelry with this regard. In terms of the gold, it's forbidden. For the women, there's no objection with it. There's no issue with it. There's a hadith from Imam Abi Abdullah as-Sadiq alayhi salam. He narrates from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. He says that the Holy Prophet said to Ali alayhi salam, إياك أن تتختم بالذهب. Beware that try to avoid wearing the gold ring. To Ali alayhi salam. فإنه حليتك في الجنة. Since it is your ornament in paradise. Don't wear it in dunya. They will give it to you in paradise. Because in paradise, the ahkam and the rules will change.
Yes.
It's not like in this dunya that gold is haram, things are haram, silk is haram, for example.
Yes.
In paradise, things will be, there's no ahkam, haram, halal. It's all rewards.
Yes.
You're there just to get the rewards. So Allah, of course, with His mercifulness, with His kindness, would, of course, bestow all the beauties and bounties on the believers in that state.
Awesome. Sheikh, back to clothing and salah. Now, we know that blood, a certain amount of blood is allowed when you're praying salah. I think it's a thumbprint. But what if the blood is from somewhere else? What if the blood is from hayd, or what we call the menses cycle that women go through, our sisters go through? So, even if it's a needle drop, as we say, like qatara, as we say in Urdu, on your clothes, is your salah sahih or batil?
As a precaution, the salah is both batil and void. Yes.
Awesome. Shaykh, I think we've got another phone call. Inshallah, we're able to speak to one of our viewers. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I hope you're well. Thank you very much. I hope you are well. Your question, please, for the Sheikh.
That what is the views of Sheikh Hafiz Bashir Najfi on Tabarrah?
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, brother. Inshallah, the brother asking in regards to Tabarrah and the views of His Eminence, the Grand Ayatollah Sheikh Hafiz Bashir al-Najfi.
Of course, Tabarrah is part of our Aqidah. So, Al-Walaya wal-Bara'ah, both are part of the Aqidah. So, Alhamdulillah, all our ulama believe in the Tawalla and the Tabarrah.
Yes.
That's part of our Aqidah. So, Alhamdulillah, even the Sheikh, one of the strong defenders and those who back the issue of the Tabarrah as well, and even the Tawalla, Alhamdulillah. So, all our ulama, Alhamdulillah, are with the Tabarrah and Tawalla as a Aqidah, as a belief.
I see.
And that's part of the principles of the religion.
Indeed.
It's not something. Yes, the act of Tawalli and Tabarrah is part of the wajibat.
Yes.
The 10 furu' ad-din. But the actual wilaya and bara is part of the aqidah. The imamah is wilaya. And the opposite of the imamah is to do the tabarrah and to reject and denounce their enemies.
I see. Shaykhna, another question I think coming from one of our viewers, inshallah. I am following Ayatollah Sistani, Hafidhullah. Should we avoid dealing with interest? Does that mean if I work in a bank, I shouldn't be selling mortgages or any types of loans? Thank you.
Basically, Ayatollah Sistani divides the working in a bank into two categories. Number one, the haram and the forbidden one, which consists of working and dealing with interest, paying, receiving, witnessing, and so forth, to do with interest trading. So the guy deals with interest payments in and out of the bank,
Yes.
that's haram, of course.
Okay.
And even he says that the staff or the employee who receives, he shouldn't receive the money or the income from this job particularly. So they have to avoid this type of job. The second type is the permissible and allowed and halal act, in which you work in the, let's say, cashier, you receive money from people, cash, and you insert the money into their accounts. And they ask for withdrawal, and you would withdraw cash from their accounts, and you pay them, and so forth, which are fine. You're cashing checks, for example, and so forth. These are halal transactions, there's no issue with it. So you can work in this section of the halal transactions in the bank.
Awesome. Shaykhna, a question in from one of our viewers. Unfortunately, it's not going to be on the TV screen because it was quite long. Well, the scenario is that I like a guy and we are going to get engaged, alhamdulillah, mashallah, in some time. But due to some circumstances, the nikah, the akad will be after 1.5 years. Now, during this time, we want to have FaceTime calls and meeting face to face, occasionally because he lives in a different state. So I wanted to know, is it permissible to talk about our future, sexual desires, virtual expressions of love, and to have an intimate discussion during this time? What is better to do in this scenario?
For any type of mentioned relationships and conversations must be done through nikah contract. So either the long-term nikah or the short-term nikah contract.
Okay.
They have to have in somehow a contract which makes them halal to each other, because they want to go beyond just talking and conversations. It's going to be emotional, romantic, and so forth. So they have to go through the halal channels and means in order to cross the red lines, in other words,
Yes.
when they talk, when they have conversations, and so forth. The other issue that if she is virgin, she needs the permission of her father.
Okay.
That's very important. So they can't just do the contract and they just go with
Yes.
it. They have to ask, or she needs to ask the permission of her father with this regard. If the father is dead, then the grandfather of the father of the father, which is the grandfather, because the father and his father, they have the wilaya, the authority over this girl,
Okay.
the virgin girl.
I see.
So they need a permission. Also, they shouldn't go through the friendship without, as I said, aqd. That's important. They have to have this aqd nikah to avoid any haram contacts.
Okay. I think we've got a question coming from one of our viewers. I live in Japan, but what if I wear a scholar or a woman wears an abaya in hair? It's not something people wear in hair, so is it haram to wear it or is it permissible because it's Islamic clothing? So coming from living in Japan, not many people wear traditional Islamic / Arab clothing. Are they allowed to wear it considering not many people wear it there at all?
Well, hijab is wajib, regardless of being in Mecca and Medina, or being in Las Vegas, or in California, or Japan, or China. You have to wear the hijab. It's wajib. And it has to be white, basically, white hijab. Be it a abaya, or be it a chador, it has to be wide enough. And yes, as I've said, location is not an issue. So they have to make sure they wear something that doesn't show the body curves and body size. Not very tight clothing.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sheikh. Thank you to all of you for joining us and calling in. If you have a question, you can send it in via the WhatsApp, the email address, or give us a call on our next episode, which will be on Wednesday, inshallah, 6:30 here on Imam Hussein TV 3. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
We question our daily position, seeking answers and definitions. Get the queries off your chest with Ahkam SOS.